All right, Shinto. We've already talked about Japan. You've noticed as we've gone through the year with our religions, we've been kind of working geographically. So we started with indigenous sacred ways, which is all over the place, and then we moved into Indian religions, and now we were in Chinese religions. We have talked about Japan. We talked about Japanese expressions of some of those religions. Can you maybe give me an example of Japanese parts of religions? Yes, please. Nichiren Buddhism. Remember, Nichiren was the son of a fisherman in Japan who created a uniquely Japanese expression of Buddhism. There was one other big one, also Buddhism. What is the sound of one hand clapping? A tree falls in the woods. Zen Buddhism was actually mostly created in China, but became very popular in Japan, and now we think of it more as a Japanese expression of Buddhism than a Chinese expression of Buddhism. So we've talked about Japanese spirituality a little bit, but Shinto is the only thing that we'll talk about. Did anyone talk about the Ainu in this class? The Ainu. The Ainu are an indigenous people in Japan, but Shinto is the only other thing we'll talk about. It's the only major religion we'll talk about that is of Japanese origin exclusively. It comes from two Japanese words, Shin and Do. Shin means divine being. We might say God, and Do is the way. It's very similar to Tao, which is also the way. So knowing that Shin means divine being, Do means way, how would you translate Shinto? Yeah.
Divine way.
Divine way? Well, sort of.
Divine way of the being.
No, I don't think so. Cameron? No, that would be interesting. Grace?
The way of the divine.
There you go. I think it's the way of the divine being.
That was stupid.
The way of the divine being. Yeah. Shinto doesn't have a canon of scripture. And it doesn't have any no orthodox hierarchy of any sort. So by that I mean no pope figure. And it doesn't really have any, there are a couple written books that are used in Shinto. You don't need to know these, but they're called the Kojiki and the Nihongi. But contemporary religious scholars and scholars of Shintoism think that those books are not actually of Japanese origin, that they were probably written by Chinese people who lived in Japan, or maybe even by the Chinese in Shinto. Shinto is all about kinship with nature. What does kinship with nature mean? Awesome.
Like being in love with nature. Based on like everything you do is based off of what nature does.
Okay. Everything you do is based off what nature does. Sorry, what's kinship mean? So your kin is your family, right? And so kinship would be the relationship you have with your kin. So, so Shinto is a religion that's about how human beings interact with nature. It's a very nature-based religion. And something I thought that was interesting while I was researching was, when you think of Japan, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Tokyo.
Tokyo?
Godzilla.
Gojira? Electronics?
Hiroshima.
Islands?
Hiroshima.
Hiroshima? Yeah. Gemini is big. Okay.
When you
But
realize
you think of, when I think of Japan, I think of big cities, really big cities, like Tokyo and its surrounding area is one of the most densely populated areas of the world. Mostly because they have, it's not the most populous city in the world, but it is very densely populated because of Japanese ingenuity has built incredibly tall skyscrapers, and so you have thousands of people living in like one city block. It's very densely populated. Really good public transportation. They have those bullet trains that go along.
I'll take a look
the Big Island.
I'll take a look
Like 500. Oh, it's super fast.
How does
It's
body even deal with that?
So they're
You're
very
riding a
technologically
plane,
advanced.
aren't you?
Sony, Nintendo, Toshiba. Stop talking. Sony, Nintendo, Toshiba, all of these different electronics manufacturers are located in Japan. It's a very technologically advanced place. That's what I think of first. But oh yeah, and you see the videos of like they're building robots and stuff that look like humans. Yeah. Pokemon. No. Anyway. But Japan is also. Has anybody ever been to Japan? No, I haven't been to Japan. Has anybody ever been to Hawaii? Okay, so we have some people who've been to Hawaii. Japan and Hawaii share a very similar geological phenomenon. I mean, what that is. Okay.
They both
You're going to be sitting over at this table.
They're both hot. They were both bombs.
Wait, somebody said I heard over here.
Volcanoes.
Volcano. They're both volcanic islands. Thanks, Kevin. They're both volcanic islands, and what is volcanic? What do volcanic islands look like in general?
They look like a big sloping mountain.
Okay, so they're like huge mountains. Yeah.
They look like they're from the water.
And volcanic, yes, they do. And volcanic ash and volcanic soil is very nutrient rich and flat, and so you have really densely forested areas, and they're also geologically and climatologically diverse. So in Hawaii, you have places that look like deserts, that are very desert-like, right next to places that look like tropical jungle. So you have a lot of biodiversity in both volcanic island chains. So Japan is a very beautiful and nature diverse place. Thanks, bye. Beautiful and biologically diverse. That's why it's connected to the word for it. Alright. So it would make sense that the religion would be very nature focused. Like when we talked about indigenous sacred ways, there's a lot of nature focus in those religions, and big geological formations or unique aspects of the climate in those places become part of the religion. So desert-based indigenous people have religions that look very different from forest-based indigenous people. And the people who live near the Grand Canyon incorporate the Grand Canyon into their creation myths, or Irish Rock in Australia, like we talked about with our indigenous ways. So Japan did the same thing. So Shinto is, like Taoism, a direct evolution of indigenous sacred ways as well. Oh, and something also very interesting. You don't have to know this, I just thought it was cool. Apparently, in Japanese, there was no word for nature until they encountered the West, until like the 19th century, because Japanese people lived so close to nature that they never had a word to demarcate like city versus nature. That's how we use the word nature nowadays. Is like we are not in nature right now. We're in a classroom. Nature is out there. That the Japanese people didn't even have a word for that. That's pretty cool.
That's not good on the test.
What's that?
That's not good on the test.
No, don't worry about that.
Actually, got it.
Nope.
So whatever.
Alright. The single most important word you will learn in Shintoism, other than the word Shinto, is the word kami. Ism isn't a word. The word kami. K-A-M-I. The best translation for this would be nature spirit. Because Shintoism looks like I'm gonna write this right here. I know you hate it when I do this, but Shintoism is a polytheistic religion, but it's polytheistic in the way that Hinduism is polytheistic. What do I mean when I say that? Austin?
There's multiple gods.
Multiple gods, yes, but when I say it's multiple gods, like Hinduism is multiple gods, whatever.
Multiple faiths is like the same God.
Right, all the gods in Hinduism are connected back to and are just manifestations of what is it? Brahman, right? So Brahman, there's one god in Hinduism, but that god manifests itself in many different gods that people actually interact with. Shintoism is very similar to that, and so kami is a Japanese word that is neither singular nor plural. And so it's both. It's not singular nor plural. And so you can talk about an individual kami, but then then you talk about kami as there are many kami in the world. It's kind of like, do you guys know the difference between the word fish and fishes? Can you use a plural? What do you got?
Fish, if there are more than one of the same kind, and fishes if there are multiple kinds of fish.
Yeah, do you guys know this? So if you have like a big school of tuna, that is fish. But if you have an aquarium that has a bunch of different kinds of fishes in it, then that would be fishes. I think that's the one. Good job, fishes. And so kami is kind of like fish. It can be, you can have a singular fish or you can have many fish. Kami is, you can have a singular kami or many kami. So kami
Neither
is not
singular
the
nor
correct
plural.
So where did you write
Is that?
Neither singular nor plural, but both.
Yeah.
Are commies like good spirits or bad spirits?
Are kamis good spirits or bad spirits? Good question. And we're not talking about it today, but we will talk about it tomorrow. It has to do with what they think about you.
So it's like the kitchen dog.
Kind of, but we're talking about it.
Talking about nature.
Interesting sidebar. Drew Smith told the funniest Shinto joke I've ever heard during class this morning. He said, I don't really believe in Shintoism. Kami crazy. Super good. Super good.
That was bad.
Before we started Shintoism, you said that?
No. He said it this morning. Once he learned about Kami, I think it's awesome making up jokes.
I think that's actually a pretty good one.
All right. Will somebody do some reading about the creation of Japan and the origination of the kami for me? I'm on page 216 in your book. Everybody open up. Jacob. It happens again. I'm moving it. You can sit right there next to me. Stop watching. On page 216, will somebody read for me? You want to read?
As soon as I get the
Max, thank you. 216. Under the heading Honoring the Kami, you're going to read, there's one prime ancestor of the Japanese people, and then you're going to read this deity, and then go.
surrounded by nature's beauty and power, the Japanese people found the divine all around them.